There we go. Yeah, I entirely forgot to add a microphone to the... Hello. I'm going to be screwing around the Hightail in the background, but I have a plugin where I can see chats at all times, no matter what the situation is. This isn't my actual stream world, for sake of argument. This is a duplicate of it where I'm just screwing around, keep myself busy so I have a natural flow of vocals. Feel free to start throwing questions in the chat, but I do not know how to start this particularly. I know there's a lot of people who do scripted streams, which confuses me by concept. I know there's some things where it's like, hey, we have preset, we're going to be doing this, but in all honesty, I don't know how practical that is for my particular anything. I was never really good at have like a structure. When playing games in particular, I just do roguelikes, open exploration, just nothing ever the same. Ah, we're out of ammo. But yeah. Hello, Bungo. Bon God Cat? I don't know how to pronounce that. Is there a way you could type out how you would pronounce such a thing? I won't harass you about that. How's your day been, by the way? Got any questions for me? I'm gonna create a new edit to this. Oh. Do apologize about that. Someone's trying to break down my door. Let us see. If anyone's got questions, feel free to throw them up. I will answer quite literally anything as long as there is at least some regard of sanity to the questions. Yeah, I am really sorry that I'm not sit still, always doing something in the background. Say I have ADHD, but I was, one, never really tested for it, and two, when I was ever tested in that regard, it really didn't seem like it was a thing. Yeah, I don't know what it is about this particular camera, but some of the face tracking just does not work properly. Like, yeah, it's doing 1080p 30 or 60. Beyond me to know the exact stats because it's an ONN whatever's, and as much as it says that it has different varieties of quality, I swear this thing is locked at 30 FPS. When it's being grabbed by an application, only running at 24, which is also quite the specific number. Let's see. Relaunching the Hightail thing. I do not sit still very well. Alright. But yeah, it just... I don't know if you'll ever see that problem with microphones or otherwise other Giant feather just flew past me. We have birds, but I was not expecting that to almost hit me in the face. Anyways, yeah, I don't know if y'all have consistency with any particular peripherals, but I always see it personally where it's like, there's always that one peripheral that just doesn't act the way you want it to. It could be a capture card, it could be a mouse or something. Always something, but it has some problem with it. It is silly in some regard, and it will never actively be the way you want it to. For me, it happens to be my webcam, because despite it's rated everything and updating drivers, or otherwise trying to mitigate its gibberish, it acts the same. And I would swap I said microphone. I would swap webcam. Be completely honest, this does everything I need it to for now. What really bothers me though is if I lean just a little too far to any side, it'll count me as loss of tracking. And I have screwed with it. There is nothing where I'm particularly like going outside of the zones, or if I look down, it just drops all focus. I look up, I hit a ceiling, which I thought was the avatar's range of motion, but no. Other things have tracked me very well, but anything related to specifically VTube Studio, just I hit a barrier. Look like I've ascended. There's another thing. Doesn't help that to break the entire tracking, what I end up doing is I can't sit still, so I start rotating around, and it doesn't like that because like I said, often hit the barrier of what acceptable range I have. And it's not like there's an actual like visible box of where. I've sometimes had it go well past while still tracking me, or as what I've been seeing somewhat, had problems where, okay, I'm perfectly in zoom. I lean to the side, my fiance or otherwise is behind me, then they get the tracking. But then if I lean back in my chair, I lose all tracking sometimes. So I don't know if there's an explanation for that. That's insane. Also, for those of you who have no clue what this little boss bar in the bottom corner is, this is a follow bar thing. It's to encourage individuals to follow because they will become the boss of the more follows, the more HP. If you do bits donations or otherwise equivalent, you can end up pretty over healthing yourself. I'm gonna go back here and fuck yourself. Push the bear out of the way. Swim in the water. Clearly. Yeah. Boss bars are a fun thing to add. It was a Stream Elements plugin I got a while ago. But I have not seen too many people use it, considering the one person who was practically my first follower happened to be cemented in it at the time. Like, even though I've updated the settings to the boss bar, it refuses to update. And I don't know if it's something particular to Stream Elements or if there's an alternative boss bar. But for all sake of argument, that person, Sir Stimpack 101, or ma'am, I don't know, has cemented themselves as the individual who will be the boss. Till like 5 to 7 more people follow, or otherwise sub and such. Yeah, there's definitely some wackiness to it. But the main problem I've had is that when I've tried to reset the particular plugin, it just doesn't adjust. Like, there used to be a method where you could reset the data of the plugin, and it would just generate a whole new boss bar, and you could start it as yourself, change the HP, and so forth. But no clue what's affecting it, because every time I've tried since its implementation, it has remained Stimpack. And there's definitely been some people who followed since. It's just, for some reason, it refuses to let anyone else harbor that spot. Albeit they're on 151 HP, so they could easily be taken past. I mean, not the grandest goal. But let's be honest, they started at like 1,000 HP. So they had a massive lead, at least by my belief. And for that alone, I believe they are quite cemented until someone decides to take a leap above that. Let's see, let's just quick stack anything allows us to. I'm just gonna take out the stone. Yeah, it's a little chaotic. Let's see, let's get a wheel of questions. Alright, let us start off with this question. What is your favorite city? Currently, when I say currently, because let's be honest, having one particular favorite of anything is always subject to change when the situation changes. Such as currently, I live in New Mexico, so knowing the town of Albuquerque, I would say that for the sake of it being the largest town I've ever seen, where it is practically the majority of the state, I would say that's my favorite. Good second would probably be San Francisco, if not just because of Fisherman's Wharf being the experience of a lifetime. Sure, the only times I've ever been there were when it's raining or otherwise high winds, gloomy skies, and so forth. That's what you're going to expect at the ocean, especially when you're at the Pacific. Is it Pacific or Atlantic? Yeah, I don't think I ever really knew about that. As much as we're told there's hundreds of different bodies of water, knowing the individual name of every single one is quite the task. No matter if you live next to it, there's no guarantee what city, sorry, what ocean it is. I believe it was the Pacific Ocean. Let me look it up. As if... its description doesn't help. Let's see. California Ocean. Okay, so it is the Pacific. That's what I was thinking. Cool. So I do know my oceans. It's just not off the top of my head. Okay. Let us ask another question. Okay, it's if you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be? Person? I don't really have too much preference in that regard. I'm not very publicly outgoing like that. So if it were to be, oh, I want to pick brand new place, be entirely new, it would generally have to be somewhere somewhat metropolitan, but more on the outskirts of that city. I do like having good access to the ocean or otherwise. So it is nice to be able to go, okay, I live in such and such city, so there is ocean right next to me. Or I could easily go to the countryside and just chill out, breathe in some open air and probably a lot of manure-based smells, but all the same, it's out in the open, it's fresh breath of fresh air, quite literally, because city smog. But all the same. Let's get the skeleton real quick and just... There we go. I can look up the question. Which cities have you visited? Trying to think which ones would actually be valuable to me. Because there was a time a long while back where I had attempted to live in Myrtle Beach, which is a very, like, directly next to the ocean city in South Carolina. And I would say that was a beautiful place. Would I say I've really visited it? Not really. I mean, as much as I was there, the entire intent was to see about living. I spent the entire 12 plus hours walking around because I had no transport at the time and very little money to my name aside from the initial rent or otherwise. And I was trying to see what I could do to get the apartment I had signed up for and paid for the electricity for. I was legitimately ready to start everything. But because I didn't have a physical check and my bank was in California at the time, I had no options. Legitimately, I landlocked myself by not having a specific thing. And the fun part about it is that it's not like I didn't try. I legitimately walked well over 20 miles to get things done, hopefully to secure myself that living situation. But in the end, I ended up having to fly back to my parents, and I had some very beat up feet to the point of where I could not walk. And when I'm saying could not walk, I don't mean exhausted. I mean, like, legitimately, I could not move. I was laying in a bed for an entire week. Had to be assisted to even go use. Because I could not walk. My entire feet were calloused. And what is the word for those inflatable bag things one gets on their feet? I forgot the name of it. Medical condition where it's like a welt or otherwise that swells up into a little pocket of fluid that your body is using for antibacterial and otherwise. It's on the tip of my tongue. Actually, I'd prefer it weren't on the tip of my tongue. That's a good thing to say. I'm just gonna go with callus for now. To be completely honest, callus sounds about right. Where did you last go on vacation? I do not actually remember. It's been an extremely long time since I've gone on any actual vacation. I mean, to roughly answer the question, I will say the last time I've gone on a date that was explicitly a date instead of just happenstantial hanging out with my wife, getting to spend time alone. The last big date we had was going to a Red Robin. And if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like, I'm gonna say Arby's, that's not be appropriate. Let's say it's a lot more of a fancy thing than Chili's or Applebee's. And they have bottomless fries, so you pay a flat fee, as many fries as you want. I don't believe we did that, if not just because we ordered like 2 dishes for the both of us. We assumed they would be a lot smaller or a lot less filling than they were. I mean, we considered it fast food. Although it really was not. It was technically more of just like full professional eating establishment. By that regard, I mean the burger we had, although it was covered in grease, was very natural and very good. The amount of grease was simply from them making so many very good patties. It was probably one of the thickest burgers I've ever had. The meat itself was about, honestly, almost an entire inch thick. And it was layered with, I think it was layered with a mild sauce. Don't quite remember that. Honestly, I just remember that the pizza we had gotten was ridiculously overkill for the 2 of us. It may not have been that big, but because of how filling and or good it was, we just couldn't get enough of it, and we still ended up bringing home, I believe it was almost an entire half of it. But yeah, I mean, that was honestly the best experience I can remember in terms of like a vacation. It's technically not, but I'll say it is for the sake of argument. Because I don't think I've legitimately been on a vacation other than having some time aside. Favorite color? I don't know that I inherently have a favorite color, but I have a few favorites that I prefer above other colors. And those are going to be purple and orange. And not just like a normal orange, more of like an orange cream slash, I think the official color is technically peach. I'd still go orange. It's this mildly faded but still vibrant orange. Similar to this fox over here, but just like slightest bit lighter. And when I say lighter, I don't mean just like increase the brightness so it's a little bit more washed out. It's just like a lighter cream. Cream would be the appropriate like addition. So like if you had a nice custard yellow and you slowly and methodically mixed it into a nice bright orange, that's about the color. I'm just gonna toss out these extra. Don't inherently need those. But yeah, that. And then more of a lavender. Oh, I guess pastel might be the appropriate word. Maybe it's more of like a pastel orange. A lavenderish kind of purple. So it's kind of the same thing with the orange. It is just shy of the specific color, but it is still reminiscent entirely of what it's supposed to be. So it's not like the full grape color, but it comes off as like subtle and still very specific. It's still vibrant, but it's not faded. If that makes sense. Let's see. Favorite animal. I don't know if there's any point answering this, considering my current entire page being, I would think, a very clear representation of what my choice in that matter would be. Albeit, for the entire sake of argument, I will say it is a fox. Foxes are a very clever creature. They do have their silly habits, but in essence, they're just a cute little fella or glass with the most energetic personality you've ever seen. I may not inhabit that myself 100% of the time, but always having the stereotypical scheming personality is something I can definitely align myself with. For all intents, that is who I am. I'm always looking to make sillies out of things. I'm always looking to just have a fun time messing with people. And yeah, I'll be honest, it does get me in trouble fairly often. But that is the inherent risk of being too silly. That maybe the too silly is too far. And I'm not below apologizing. Or not above apologizing. Because everyone should be having fun. Or feeling safe in their own environment. If I went up to someone and said, "Oh, I don't like your shirt," you know, just some random person on the street, that would make them feel either self-conscious or just like questioning my everything, if that is the personality I give off. I'm to believe it is everyone's responsibility to make sure everyone can have a fun and safe environment at all times. But like I was saying back to the original point, foxes. They are like the absolute perfect creature for that. They are never a particular threat. They just openly are silly beings who share their enthusiasm with others. And do get hyperly enthusiastic about everything. I mean, if you've seen any fox video, you'll see them rolling around, doing their almost whimpering whine, but still adorable. It's non-specifically, like, cute. Playful. Let us continue. Favorite sport? Favorite sport is a tough one. And I say that because I have not particularly ever had a big fondness for sports as a general. I've had some interest for soccer because that is basically what I grew up on. All of my neighbors were relatively, if not explicitly, Hispanic. So they had a lot of like, oh, the World Cup's on, let's go watch that, let's reenact everything. They taught me how to, with my bow-legged stance, still end up kicking the ball as forward as I can get it, at least. Teaching me things about the rules of soccer, which, honestly, compared to my father trying to teach me how to play and or what everything in football stands for, which I cared very little for, they at least seemed to show more of an effort towards like making sure I understood and or was validated on like the actual rule set, compared to, oh, this is the rules, we're gonna put that right towards you. It was so that we could play together, not so that it'd show you my interest and get you into sports betting. My father was not very fun in that regard. And albeit he didn't risk any significant sums when doing the betting, but there was several a time where it was my mother complaining that he has now dumped another $50 into the betting. That only happened a few times, but still, like, he's prioritizing his betting over our low of income and whatnot. Albeit, yeah, maybe that was his source of entertainment, his fun or whatnot, but when it came at our family's expense, it really just felt empty and hollow. Like every attempt he was doing was just to inflict some sort of problem. Anyways, that's a darker topic for another time if it ever becomes more related. Did I lose a crafting station? No? Let's go to the next question. Favorite TV show of all time? Oh my goodness, that's a hard one. And I say that's hard because there are so many really good TV shows. I will go with the top 3. That is where I will adjust myself. For the sake of the ones that I've paid most attention to, I'm going to say, in order of value descending, so whatever I say first is the most valuable, I would say some of the early Doctor Who up until specifically Jodie Whittaker. Because once it left Peter Capaldi, Doctor Who really fell off in plot. The entire thing just went straight out the window in terms of what you could really understand and or how much they were just willing to push certain agendas or ideals towards the viewer. And it really felt more like political statements than actually trying to present a good show. Most of that happened to be actually because of Disney. And I say that because after the acquisition of them, half of the episodes were focusing on whether or not a character had a specific gender or whatnot. Like, kudos. Every person can have their own specified preferences and whatnot and be open about it. But when you're making an entire, let's say, 8 to 10 minute part of a 20 to 40 minute episode be entirely about character sexuality or otherwise, I think that's where you draw the line. I mean, there was one particular instance of where... No, let's start. Sorry, I was trying to think if there was a particular instance I could remember, but I know there was one and it slipped my mind. I don't know if y'all have watched Doctor Who all that much, but there was a character named Bill. And I don't inherently remember what they went by. Just that they eventually went to be with a woman. They were so subtle in how they implemented that. Like, yes, there was some explicit references towards their orientation, and by all means, they fit every time they were implemented. But when it came time for Disney to acquire them, based on the BBC not being able to significantly or appropriately continue the series, they figured Disney would have more resources. I don't know the entire tale, but when it came time for Disney to acquire them and to be in charge of all of that, they really dropped the ball. They just entirely, one or two characters was an entire, hey, I have such and such disability, let's make that an entire plot point. Oh, I don't actually have to get a lift for you to enter the TARDIS because you already have one, or something of that regard. Yeah, that's cool, they're showing accommodation, but did they have to make that an entire plot point? And or do they really have to expound upon, yeah, people have disabilities, let us explicitly point that out as if that should be the focus of the show? I mean, sure, there can be plenty of shows that is the explicit purpose of, but when a show is nothing about that, it's about exploration and puzzles and fighting alien races, I don't think having a full 3-minute segment about, oh, we added an accessibility gate to the TARDIS, should that be an entire plot point? I mean, that should be a subset. Oh, I added a ramp. Cool. Let's enter the TARDIS. Whatever. It's whatever it needs to be for that moment. But making it explicitly and or solely that point, that is the entire bit for that entire scene, I feel that's a bit overdone for what it needs to be. Like, I have no problems whatsoever with any individuals of any variety. I just don't like when people shove down a certain character's personality or otherwise. Why a lot of drama shows are a bit hard to watch. Because, I mean, there's been stupid things where soap operas have done, oh, I farted at my daughter's funeral or something like that. And then there'll be an entire scene where the main character is crying over it because it was such a hard thing for them having to deal with. And it's like, the audience just stares because, what am I even watching? The show is about this character losing a family member, and then they do something like, oh, someone farted at my daughter's funeral, so that is what we have to spend 5 minutes crying over. Maybe I'm missing the point. Maybe that is the emphasis that needs to be done for a particular scene. Maybe I'm not so attached to the character emotionally that maybe it was a big thing. Maybe that was just the one thing that they needed to say. If that is an entire plot point, is that not, like, focusing on the lesser important details for the actual what's happening in the show, I feel is a big overstep of what individuals are doing. Like, by all means, have any type of alternative character you want. Have them, for the sake of argument, have 7 arms and that technically being a disability for some reason. I guess it kind of would, because they would have one extra arm that, sticks off their back, maybe comes from their stomach or something. That's a side point. That is something one needs to consider. that, sure, yeah, that can be part of the plot, but having it be a main plot point to where, hey, the episode is about going fishing, and oh, this entire segment is about how I have 7 arms and no one will ever like me. All of a sudden, it's like, bro, we came here to watch such and such episode about fishing. Yes, it is important that you show your characters problems, but I don't know, maybe it's a timing thing. Because if you correctly implement such a thing throughout like the general character versus making it an explicit plot point, then it becomes more valid when they do actually need to have a plot point towards, oh, this happened in my life, so I need to change personality, or it will affect how I run throughout. Say, the doctor brings you to a volcano planet and you need to run for your life. They shouldn't be focusing on whether or not a character is really into frogs. Unless, of course, it's a lighthearted subsegment, but albeit it feels a bit too obtrusive a topic just to specifically use as like a secondary enlightening or just character development in the middle of chaos. Let us do the next topic. What is your favorite band or musician? I would have to say favorite band. I was gonna immediately say AJR, but I haven't listened to them all too that much. The one I have listened to though is Live for Fighting. And I never really looked up if they were a band or an individual. But I really just vibed with how their songs were. They have a lot of like, I guess that's my English teacher in, I think it was junior year of high school. They had said that they have a lot of like specific rhythm and or mathematic proportion to how they do their songs. Every individual song has like its own mathematically specific way of doing things. So it'll be a certain drum beat follows a sine wave. So it'll increase in intensity and drop down. And then follow that same pattern up to a certain point, and then swap to a cosine or tangent, something in that regard. I would have to say they're probably my favorite. I mean, they have a lot of messages, like, there's a song called Can One Man Save the World? There's a lot of things that they pointed out about society that, honestly, go listen to the songs yourself, but very much important thing to listen to. They're also the people who did the song Superman, which I will not sing because of DMCA and otherwise, but for all intents, is a very good song that a lot of people know. Go ahead and just put this town planning desk outside. Next question. Which gaming platform do you prefer? Okay, so that is a very difficult one because it really depends on, I mean, for me, I don't really have a preference as much as for the sake of morality and otherwise, there's really no point in using anything that isn't Steam. Because they've kept their moral standards relatively, and I say that because there's been some legal obligations towards them over specifically telling other producers that, hey, your game's being sold on another platform for cheaper than ours. So either it has to be the same competing price or more. And that is that. Or we're going to remove your game from the platform. And I believe they very much owned up to it. Gaben also did a open statement about that, saying that that was never their explicit practice, but that was how they were doing things for quite a while. Especially with some of the Valve correspondents going to larger studios, and some pricing otherwise being changed from Microsoft games, because if they didn't have Steam as their marketplace, they wouldn't as well be able to expand their reach or otherwise get people to actually swap to their games. Because when they were specifically just doing the Xbox store, of course they'd have all the Xbox players, but they'd lose out on the entire PC market, especially when individuals don't really use the Xbox app for PC. Give me a moment. Okay, we are back. I just had to go get some water. I kept getting stuff stuck in my throat, it felt like. Let's see. What was the previous question? Gaming platform. Okay. I don't think I specifically answered the question. So for the sake of argument, I'm going to say Steam. But quickly followed by, and this is a little bit of a controversial one, Nintendo. And I say that because although they have very bad business practices, and although you own entirely nothing, not even the console you've purchased, according to their legal terms, and I'm serious about that, you don't actually have right of the console, hence they're bricking it remotely, then not inherently asking you to turn it in, but you no longer have access to anything internally. They just make very good experiences. And I say that because the only eras of it I've played are the original Switch and the Wii, which are, to my understanding, honestly, the best options they've ever had in that regard. Because the Wii offered shared family experiences unlike anything before. The Next Playground is basically the only equivalent that one can find in a modern situation that even comes close to what the Wii offered. I mean, when it comes to it, who remembers playing Wii Play? I'm pretty sure everyone remembers playing Wii Sports, Wii Play. Any particular, hey, I went over to a friend's house and they played their Wii with me, or had me bring a remote, and although I didn't own a console, I still played the Wii. Something in that regard. But, I mean, as it stands, I would still say the Wii is a very played system. People turn it in because they like to GameStop or just local resellers, because they may be too old or otherwise don't have a lot of individuals to play with, but I still see people talking about the Wii. I still see people playing the Wii versions of games. I'm very sorry, Fox. I must do this. I need the light leather. Anyways, but when it came to the Switch era, it was a bit lesser because the entire format changed. When you play a game, you're limited to whatever the IMU, internal movement / gyroscopic trackers, can do. So it does limit your capabilities, but you still have plenty of capabilities to do. And it's not like you're exactly losing out on the amount of games, especially with them having the Switch version of esports and the likes. But it really does still feel like there's a lot of problems with that. It's just not the same experience, and even the Switch 2 version, I think, takes some of the general spirit of the original games, but really just moves them aside for plot. Or not plot, but like profit. Like, they created the bare minimum experience for people that have nostalgia into, similarly, just submit themselves to whatever the most recent Nintendo slop is. But inherently, they were good games. It was just, they did a lot of stupid political or otherwise stuff in relation to it. They made it something where it was supposed to be the successor to, or the newest iteration of, but loses the entire spirit of the original. Oh, I think the appropriate term would be nostalgia bait. Yeah, I think that's the best wording I got for it. Where it appeals to the original design, but then moves it out for something that is entirely just their next cash grab. Let's see. Favorite season? So, my answer is going to be a little bit of a loaded one. I can't handle allergies practically at all, to the point of where I can't breathe with certain situations, but all the same, I'm going to have to say autumn, otherwise known as fall, is the best season. And I say that because, let's be honest, the beautiful orange on those trees, the changing of colors, everything having its own distinct difference, everything preparing for winter or otherwise transitioning. It's just a season of change. And as someone who plays roguelikes or exploration, every little bit of change matters to me. It is practically the one feature I look for. I mean, sure, I want stability of some regard. Who doesn't want to know that if you open the refrigerator, you'll see food, or if you find a car in a game, it'll be explicitly broken down, but having every resource you need, or some caveat like that. Granted, it's a little silly. Some consistency in a world of chaos, but mainly chaos because that is what I thrive on. Okay, we've got some ores. Let's go ahead and go for the next one. What type of movies do you enjoy? I have lesser been able to... Excuse me. Did not mean to start yawning. I've lesser been able to stand for longer movies, especially because realizing when certain plots are just being dragged on for the sake of extra development that's not inherently needed, or will not become like a substantial plot point later on of, oh, I saw you cough earlier, that means you're actually sick and you're a really weak supervillain or something in that regard. Ooh, Red Cottage. But when it comes to it, I think overall one would expect sci-fi would probably be the best genre. And for that sake, I can't really do more of the Marvel movies. There are some of the more developed characters like Deadpool, who, while being less, I think less of a connected character, or like legitimate, straight to the point, does such and such. They generally are the most well built. They have a distinct character to them compared to, hey, I shoot lasers out of my hand and I have very little mental capacity, but I know how to shoot lasers and I'm very good against certain individual who also shoots lasers. Something like that. But I'd still say sci-fi. More like, not thriller, but something where it's like space, mystery, collaborative effort kind of a plot. I mean, it's not explicitly just sci-fi, but something in that kind of regard. And following that, I would say that Independence Day specifically would be a no-go for my watch. Because they decided they were going to do it over again. And then they decided they were going to make continuations of the story as if there needed to be. And I felt like both of those choices were, like, explicitly unnecessary. But yeah, something that's a little bit mixture between, like, mystery and or space. That's my sweet spot. Let's see, next question. Do you normally travel around? I'm just gonna go with a straight no. I don't really have the ability or otherwise to do that. Ooh. What is your favorite cuisine? Now, it may be very American for me to say so, but Panda Express does not go without merit. And I say that because I personally feel like as long as they have someone who's following all the regards, the quality standards and otherwise, they're very good food. I mean, for about 10 to 12 bucks. I'm not sure if that's including drink. It's been a little while since I've got to order from them. But they have an entire meal for what's pretty much an entire drink and fries and crap, like a Burger King. But instead you're getting almost an entire palette of, hey, this is my 3 courses of, I have a serving of orange chicken, chow mein, and broccoli beef. Those are actually my top 3 picks. Actually, no, replace chow mein with fried rice. But still, those, I would say, the top foods they offer. I can do the general Jaos chicken? I don't know if that's correct pronunciation. Their chicken. I would say that's also a very good add-on. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not like the real Chinese food, but I'd still say that's probably the option I have to go with. You could have any superpower, what would it be and why? I would love to say flight, but in that regard, technically, as long as it's not like very tasking to do, it would be very good to do something like teleport. Because then you might as well be actually flying. I mean, teleport to anywhere you can realistically think about. And or, I suppose the alternative would be line of sight. But even then, I mean, all of those are really good options. It's really hard to say I would prefer flight or otherwise teleportation over each other. But honestly, I do think teleportation would probably be the more valuable. I mean, what's better than suddenly being in another place? There might be inherent costs to doing something like teleporting, such as a disruption of the air or something of the sort. But when it comes to it, having the ability to immediately be one place over saves you time of travel, saves you money, saves you the expense of needing to experience a journey that is unnecessary to your travels. Like, if I'm to take a cross-country drive, that is, I could only assume a good month, give or take proper rest, and or plenty of pit stops that are aside just grabbing what necessary food and keeping on the road. But if your goal is to experience the entire thing, I'd say it would take at least a month to actually get around. And with that comes the inherent, okay, we ran out of gas, and therefore we're experiencing a whole situation where we're stuck at an inn that we can't afford, and something like that. Well, teleportation, sure, maybe there was a great experience you could have had while traveling to the inn and met a friend that will last your entire life. But just as well, teleportation allows, okay, I have waited until the last moment to be on a stage 400 miles away from me. I could teleport, be there immediately, not miss a beat, but in that time I could have sewn a sweater for a best friend and went exploring a hillside knowing I'd be back in time for dinner. So I'd say it's really hard to justify specifically choosing one over the other because there is inherent advantage and disadvantage. But I'd say overall teleportation is probably the best option. Especially when, for ease of use, you can just be there. Alright, well, I've done this for about an hour. This was just a little bonus stream for those of you who cared to participate and ask me a question. I'm going to be doing a Hytale stream much later where we're actually going to make progress on our real world. This is just kind of giving us ideas, but then still keeping us to the practical survival basics. Such as, hey, I have to create a base, I have to sleep, worry about stamina and hunger. For the pure sake of argument, I'd say we're probably going to do basically all of this in the actual stream. But we're going to get to do so much more. And I will also leave questions up for later so that any individual can ask me what they wish. See you guys later.